From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Congress takes up the Section 702 surveillance program of foreigners. Is it essential to the intelligence community's work or an end run around the Fourth Amendment? Welcome, I'm Kyle Peterson with the Wall Street Journal. We are joined today by my colleagues, editorial board member Colin Levy and columnist Kim Strassel. In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, Congress created Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which allows electronic information gathering on non-U.S. citizens that are living outside of the United States, and also in certain instances lets the intelligence community search that database for information on U.S. citizens. Let's start with a clip of Assistant Attorney General for National Security, Matthew Olson. This is him testifying on June 13th before the Senate Judiciary Committee.
So let me address one area of particular concern, and that's the FBI's use of Section 702 information. To use the intelligence that the IC collects lawfully, agents and analysts, quote, query the database of FBI information. This is the small subset of 702 data that is relevant to open FBI national security investigations. A query simply means using a term to retrieve specific information that already is in the FBI's possession. It's like searching for something in your email inbox. You don't read every single email. You probably enter a keyword to find what you're looking for quickly within what's already stored in your inbox. And the FBI's ability to do this, to conduct these queries, is absolutely essential to its mission.
Colin, can you give us more explanation of what Section 702 is, how this surveillance works, and why has it become a controversial issue in the months leading up to its expiration or its reauthorization?
Right, Kyle. I mean, I think this is a tool really that is essential, but it also needs to be handled with great care. And I'm glad you ran that clip there because I think there's a lot of confusion about what exactly 702 does. Just to repeat the basics here, this is a power that allows the U.S. to search for intelligence coming only from overseas. This is only for overseas people, for foreigners, never U.S. citizens, no matter where they are, and never for anyone who is in the United States. So that information is gathered, and that only is information that comes from foreign sources. Now, all of the controversy that's emerged over this has come because once they've gathered all of this intelligence information on foreign sources, they say, oh, well, look, maybe there could be some connection to someone in the United States. And they are then allowed to search for, within that big pile of information, for names that might be connected to, let's say, a terrorist group. So let's say they think that a terrorist group might have a cell operating in the United States. They are able to search for names that are in the United States out of that large pile of information. So that's where the whole question about whether or not these queries are appropriate or inappropriate come in. So I think, look, you really have to see this as a moment to recognize imperfect realities. This is one of these authorities that it's essential to national security, but it's also subject to the potential for abuse. And we clearly need it to help with the surveillance of foreign intelligence communications. That thought process clearly began with the war on terror and our ability to monitor communications, or threats about terrorist attacks. And they also extend now to foreign conflicts where we no longer have very many boots on the ground. You think about a place like Afghanistan where there are a lot of moving pieces and we no longer have a major presence. And the same is true of our ability to surveil any threats coming from Russia or China. And we need to be able to use the surveillance tools that we have. So I think it would be a mistake to just take it away.
The Director of National Intelligence has a fact sheet on Section 702, and here are some of the examples it gives for reasons that it would run information on a U.S. person through this database, this haystack that is gathered from non-U.S. citizens abroad. So examples include using the name of a U.S. person hostage to call through communications of the terrorist network that kidnapped her to pinpoint her location and condition, using the email address of a U.S. victim of a cyber attack to quickly identify the scope of malicious cyber activities, using the name of a government official that has been approached by foreign spies to detect foreign espionage networks, using the name of a government official who will be traveling to identify any threats to that official by terrorists or other foreign adversaries. Kim, the question here, some of the critics of this authority say that they believe it ends up being an end run around the Fourth Amendment. But the Fourth Amendment protects people, Americans, in their papers and their effects. And if the haystack is all material from foreign nationals, emails and internet traffic, messages, things like that, it doesn't seem to me that that's the effects or the papers of U.S. person. It's the effects of the people abroad, and they may mention a U.S. person. I guess I don't see the Fourth Amendment problem with going through emails of people who are non-Americans and finding out where and why they mention Americans.
Yeah, I mean, it's this touchy subject of incidental collection, as Colin was saying. Sometimes incidental, although sometimes not incidental, meaning that if you are going after a foreign target and they are, in fact, having communications with U.S. persons for the purpose of malicious intent or a crime. I think that the tricky thing here is unfortunately, like, we do know that the FBI and the intelligence community, that these warrantless taps and looking at all of this information, that they're supposed to be targeting non-U.S. people and collecting things from non-U.S. people. But once you have all that information, what terms are being used? How are they using it to look back at situations in the U.S.? Now, you just named a number of really valid reasons why you might want to go and do that kind of sifting through the material. The problem is that by the FBI's own admission, it has had agents in the past that has abused that authority. And, you know, it's kind of the way bureaucracies end up working, right? Like, you put all of these guardrails in, but over time, people become sloppy. So we have examples out there, and the FBI has admitted to these, of people who have looked up search terms that clearly seem to only apply to U.S. crimes like January 6th or BLM protesters. We know that the FBI was using this to vet potential informants, to vet maintenance workers who they were debating hiring to have in their facilities. In one case, they looked up a member of Congress. And this has been brought to light by the fact that there is a requirement that these programs have routine audits, including by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. The chief judge of that court has come out and really railed about some of these abuses. On the other hand, the FBI has taken a lot of actions to try to minimize this. Former Attorney General Bill Barr required more auditing of the program. Christopher Wray has put some new reforms in. For instance, now agents have to provide a justification for each of these American queries that they were doing, whereas in the past, they kind of just, that whole section got kind of auto-filled and was all under one big blanket. They didn't have to be specific. So that has changed, and we are getting evidence that as a result, the number of these U.S. persons inquiries are falling to probably reflect a more reasonable number of reasonable searches. So what we've got is a really, really valuable tool. It's very, very important. We have some evidence that the FBI had become a bit cavalier in the way that it was using it and the protections that are there to make sure you're not going after or looking at things that you shouldn't be looking at. And, you know, we need to make some more progress on that. But I agree with Colin that this congressional idea that you should just get rid of this tool overall would be a huge mistake.
To put some numbers on the attempt to crack down on anything extraneous to real national security issues, there's reporting in recent days on the Director of National Intelligence's annual statistical transparency report. And this is reading from an NBC News story. It says that FBI searches for Americans' information fell from 3.4 million in the previous year to about 204,000 in the 12-month period ending in November. I guess, Colin, people have their own instincts about whether that seems like a big number or not, 204,000. On the other hand, if they're doing queries on the names of American officials whenever they're traveling, for example, to see if there might be threats against them that can be located in this haystack of foreign information, maybe 204,000 seems like an appropriate number.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, I think there has been a lot of improvement, no question. I like Kim's term, cavalier. I think what we really have to guard against here is this problem that's partially a function of just unaccountable bureaucracy in the agency. That's where we wonder, why was this particular name searched? Why did someone do searches about January 6th protesters or searches about George Floyd protesters? Was it because there was some threat to national security there, or because they were concerned about foreign influence somehow involved there? Or was it just a purely domestic political investigation that was somehow, governed really by the interests of the agents? I think those are the key questions. And I think there are ways here that you can protect against searches of Americans, with some reasonable limitations. And getting back to Kim's point on bureaucracy, I think individual responsibility is a key idea here. I think some of this really has to be looked at the level of individual agents. The FBI is really a very decentralized place, and it's not always easy to just come up with blanket rules to mitigate the problem. It's a matter of having people do the right thing and creating enough incentives and guardrails to make sure that happens. So you have these stories of FBI agents who are doing, I shouldn't laugh because it's actually not funny, FBI agents doing, queries on the database trying to get info on their ex-girlfriends. I mean, it's obviously inappropriate and abusive, but it's also, in a way, very easy to address with penalties on individual agents who use the database for that inappropriate targeting, whether it's based on political animus or based on wanting to know who their ex-girlfriend is playing pool with. Those people should face very serious prosecution and penalties.